the regularly scheduled Arts, Entertainment, Parks, and Los Angeles River Committee. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to my colleague, David Rue. We have quorum. Mr. Price is not going to join us today. He has a family urgent matter he's taking care of, and we knew that in advance. So we will start this meeting, and at this time, it looks like we have agenda item comment cards for item 5 only, and no other comment cards. So I will close public comment and comment cards at this point.
But I signed up.
Do we have that?
Yes, I did. I signed up on all items. Technically, the Brown Act.
Well, we don't have that. We don't have any signs up, and
Sign up right now.
no, it's closed. I mentioned that it's closed. It is, it's 2:37, so here we go. So, Mr. Rue, what I'd like to do is take items 2, 6, and 7 on consent without objections.
So moved.
That is what we'll do, and that brings us to item number 1, and that is an appointment. Yes, sir.
Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Yvonne Gallardo to the Cultural Affairs Commission for the term ending June 30, 2023.
Oh, and is Ms. Gallardo here? Yes. Welcome. Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Council members, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, if you wouldn't mind, looked at your resume. We're so grateful that you're stepping up to be a Cultural Affairs Commissioner, and please give us your perspective on why you're ready to serve on this commission.
I've worked in arts and culture for over 20 years in leadership positions, both in New York and Los Angeles. I'm originally from East Los Angeles, so I look at arts and culture as central parts to a successful society, and I think Los Angeles has demonstrated that really well. And I'm looking forward to serving and to listening and to learning a lot through this process. So,
Wonderful. And so, with your experience, which is vast, what types of issues do you think that you could add to in terms of your focus on the commission in this term?
I think the arts and culture field nationally is really focused on diversity, inclusion, and equity. So I have been privileged to be a part of those conversations and that work at the county level. So I'm hoping to bring that lens to whatever work is presented to the commission.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rue, any questions, comments for Ms. Gallardo?
No, just thank you so much for your willingness to serve, and we look forward to working with you and everything that you will bring, especially all your nonprofit work that you've done. Thank you so much for that, and if you could bring that on to the City of LA, we do a lot of work on that, but if you could help expand what we do, thank you so much.
That would be great, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to your contributions and hearing about all of your great ideas and making good things happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll move your nomination forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that takes care of item 1, and we'll now move to item 8.
Item 8, Mr. Chair, is a Board of Recreation and Park Commissioners transmittal relative to the authorization to execute an agreement with the Los Angeles Organizing Committee for the Olympic and Paralympic Games 2028 for the acceptance and receipt of a grant in the amount of $1.31 million in support of the Swim LA program and the LA Parks Foundation.
Terrific. Oh, and Janet Evans is here. Somehow I walked in and didn't see you at all. How's that possible? Welcome. Welcome. All right, so Mr. Stoll, would you like to start with a quick overview?
Yeah, just very quickly. Good afternoon. We're thrilled, and thank you for Janet Evans for joining us today. We put a special program in place over the summer where we extended our swim hours at all of our swimming pools and offered, in most cases, free swim lessons around the city with a goal of doubling the number of kids that we taught to swim over the summer. So we managed to achieve that over less than 3 months, going from 18,000 swim lessons to just over 36,000 in that time. So want to congratulate Jimmy Kim and our aquatics division for just putting on an amazing program. I don't need to say much more than how important swimming is to our youth. It's one of the leading causes of death in many of our youth around the city. So, we're hoping to be able to continue that and actually even grow it even more. But we had a very successful program, and thanks to our aquatics division, and thank you to Janet and the team for supporting us. And I'll turn it over to Janet if you don't.
Wonderful. And before Ms. Evans begins, I just want to point of privilege here. So Mr. Kim and I, way back in the 18 years I've known Jimmy, when he was aquatics director at the Glassell Park Pool, back when I was very active in my community. So it's always good to see you, Jimmy, and follow your career and see that you're right here in charge of all aquatics for the city. And it's just really great for me to see this personally.
Thank you very much for the nice words. You always say
Yeah.
nice things. Thank you.
You're making his first committee meeting way too easy.
So no need to be terrified.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you, Councilman, for having me here today, and always thank you. And I am the byproduct of a mother that can't swim and still can't swim. So to me, drowning prevention is incredibly important, and as we all know, something that we struggle with here. So I'm very pleased to be here today, and thank you for having me. It's really hard to believe it's been over a year since we were all in Lima celebrating our historic win to bring the 2028 games home to Los Angeles, and it's amazing to see us all come together for a unifying goal. And it's nice to be here as part of an organizing committee for the Olympic and Paralympic Games and not just a bid committee. Today, though, I am pleased to update you on one of our earliest priorities, which is our work to get up to speed on the landscape of Los Angeles' youth sports programming. The host city contract granted us permission to invest up to $160 million in youth sports in the years leading up to the Olympic and Paralympic Games. As you know, our goal for this program has been and continues to be to deliver maximum benefit for young Angelinos. We look forward to collaborating with all of you, with the city, and hope to move forward towards finalizing program details by the spring of 2019. But in all honesty, it's my dream that one of the athletes that participates in our youth sports program or more, we get to see competing in the Olympic or Paralympic Games here in Los Angeles in 28. But in the meantime, we are so excited, me personally especially, to have supported the launch of Swim LA. Is clearly a very important part to me, and being at the Expo launch in June of the summer was really a fun experience, and to be at the 1932 Olympic pool. So water safety clearly is something I care strongly about, and we at LA 28 are committed to continue working with the city to make it happen. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I can share a quick story as well. My mother never learned to swim either. And it was a combination of a trauma that her own father suffered with one of his best friends growing up, and the fact that their mother wouldn't let them go to public pools because that was back in the days before the polio vaccine.
Yeah.
And so to think that we're going to spend money helping up to thousands of children never have a fear of water and to actually prevent drownings is money well spent. So I want to thank you for spreading that message.
Of course, it's a life skill.
It's
You know,
a life
it's not
skill.
just swimming, it's a life skill. It's our oceans, it's our lakes, it's everything. It's a life skill.
And
So.
it is, they'll experience the joy of swimming because it's an incredible experience. Yeah. So thank you for all your great work.
Thank you.
Councilman, if I could add to that, an important part of the success of the program, which is something that we don't often do, which is tell the story. We did a little differently with this program. Some of this money was used on marketing of the programming to get the word out, and we don't often spend enough time and money on the marketing end of it. And I just again want to thank everybody who supported putting that piece into it, because it's extremely important that we are able to get the word out across the city, and I think that had played a huge role in us getting to the numbers that we got to.
Terrific. Well, thank you. Mr. Rue.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Janet, for being here and being such a great speaker and a host for the Olympics. And thank you to Mike Shaw. And Jimmy, wow, you doubled the numbers. I'm trying to think of a hard question to ask you, but I'm just so impressed. But more important than just life skills training and public safety issues, hopefully one of these youths will be inspired, and in 10 years, could be part of the Olympics, and more than that, win an Olympic gold for us in any of the water sports. So this is very exciting. We doubled the numbers. Hopefully, we could continue to grow them. I'm sure there's enough room. So, but thank you for this, and this is a great program.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to come out here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, so I've been advised that in an abundance of caution, we're going to allow Armando Herman his time, even though he filled out the cards late, to have 2 minutes on the items and then 1 minute on general public comment.
The general public comment was already closed, so it's multiple agenda
Oh,
items.
so okay, so 2 minutes. Okay, so no general public comment then. I don't mind. So two minutes for all the items, Mr. Herman.
Racist motherfucker. I'm sorry. My turn? Well, you know how important it is to be in the Olympics? Well, I remember when I was a kid and I didn't have to swim across the Rio Grande because I was an American. And as a Trump supporter, we support the Olympics, but not Janet Evans, nor you, Mr. Rue, because I learned to swim at Evergreen Park in Boyle Heights when they used to have 3 swimming pools growing up, until some racist motherfucker pulled the pools out of our area and filled it in with grass. And that was probably under the command of Jose Huizar, who sleeps with multiple women. But yet, I support the Olympics, and being a disabled person and using the swimming area for my disabilities, it helps me decompress so not to let myself catch typhoid that you people are supposed to protect us children when swimming in big pool areas. And regarding the so-called report on Billy the Elephant, you should stop making Billy the Elephant as stressful as you make my life. Ever since I was institutionalized at the Metropolitan Building across the street of the East City Hall by you jackasses, in retaliation, this is the reason why I keep coming to City Hall. Because back in 2012, you put me in a condition of my disability and triggered me to have these episodes of anger, upsetness, and suffer these fucking emotional distress issues with you jackasses that have AIDS.
My apologies to everyone for not warning you in advance that you were about to hear this ugliness from this speaker. He attends virtually every committee hearing. He attends city council every time. And he spews ugliness and hatred every chance that he gets. And so that's what you just witnessed. And whoever it was that took the child out of the room temporarily, thank you. That was a very wise move, because you're probably aware of what they were about to hear. So I apologize that I didn't warn you in advance, because I see some new faces who have not yet been exposed to this nonsense. But it happens every day at Los Angeles City Hall that council is in session or there's a committee hearing. And just to let you know, he's not the only one. So anytime you plan to visit any committee hearings, you're going to hear this kind of nonsense, ugliness, racist rhetoric, etc. All right. And now you're interrupting the meeting, so that's your first warning. I'll give you one more, and then you're out of here. All right, so back to item number 8. I'd like to do the recommendations now. And so what I'd like to do is concur with the ad hoc committee on the 2028 Olympics and Paralympic Games to approve the proposed agreement between Recreation and Parks, the Los Angeles Organizing Committee, and the Los Angeles Parks Foundation to accept a grant to support the Swim LA program as detailed in the report file. Furthermore, authorize the expenditure of $1,310,000 from the Youth Sports Program for the Recreation and Parks Swim LA program. Without objection,
So moved.
that'll be the order. All right, thank you. And that brings us to item 3.
Item number 3, Mr. Chairman, is the City Administrative Officer report relative to implementing authorities for the Measure A program.
Thank you. And we have the CAO and Recreation and Parks again for the overview. Hello there.
Hi, Jennifer Shimatsu representing the CAO.
Okay.
We worked with the Department of Recreation and Parks and the program management team to establish the implementing authorities and to clarify the roles of the program. The city will receive in perpetuity an estimated allocation.
We're having a little trouble hearing you, I think.
The city will receive in perpetuity an estimated allocation of.
Right now, the report reads 19.3 million. However, we've received recent information late last week that the amount for the annual allocation has been reduced by about 5%. It's attributable to delinquent tax receipts, as well as some erroneous billings to county and government offices. So that reduction, we're now looking at about 18.4 million for the annual allocations as a total right now. So.
Okay, and we'll hear if that affects our, agenda significantly.
Councilmember Mike Scholl, gentlemen, no, it won't affect anything that's before. It's just as part of the amendment that's before you. And I want to thank the CAO's office for working so closely with us at Rec and Parks to put forward a plan that we're all very. I think we'll work very well and streamline the process to get projects and this money out into the communities much faster. It's just the allocation amounts will change slightly, but as part of that, plan, we'll be submitting an annual expenditure plan to the Prop K Steering Committee and also the City Council. In which case, you will be approving that at a later date. But the reduction will be reflected in what we send to the City Council for adoption.
And for the governing structure or the protocols, is there a timeline and a deadline, or what is that? What do timelines look like? And
well, I'll let Bill and Bill, maybe if you could just introduce yourself with the department.
Sure.
But,
Sorry, Bill Jones, Recreation and Parks. I'm the grants administrator. So in more recent months, or actually as of last week, the county also advised us that the board, the report that they were going to take to the Board of Supervisors, which was anticipated in August of this year, has been postponed. Right now, they want to get through the holidays. They're advising that it'll be sometime in the mid to late January timeframe. They will open the registration process at that time, and applications will follow. So we're expecting springtime for the annual allocations, and they are on target to go forward with the competitive grants in the summer.
and Councilmember, so for Rec and Parks, so in working with the CAO's office and the steering committee, we'll well in advance of the springtime date of release of the funds, we will have gone through the process of meeting with each of the council offices, going through the allocations, and putting forward that expenditure plan that we talked about. So that should be done all well in advance of when the funding becomes available.
And are Prop A funds restricted to capital programs, capital improvements only?
Pretty much, yes. I mean, I don't know. There's a few little nuances to it, but for the most part, it is. Bill, would you?
Correct. It's about 85% is capital, and then there's some programmatic elements to Measure A.
And so it sounds like if their monies are released right around summertime, the beginning of the new fiscal year, does it make any sense, or is there any thought toward budgetary goals of Rec and Parks with the budget season coming up?
We're certainly taking that into account on some of the things. Usually what we do in our budget is more operations related and less capital related. So we're taking into account what we think some of those funds will be spent on, and making sure that we have the appropriate maintenance staff and things like that in place to take care of those improvements. So, for example, and this is just an example, we'll probably be submitting something in the budget around our HVAC systems and mechanical systems. We had a really rough summer last year with it being so hot, and uncovered a lot of problems within the system. So capital and maybe some of that Measure A money helps us with that, but then looking for the budget to help us with some of the resources to help us maintain these new systems that we so desperately need. So things like that we are definitely taking into account.
So in that sense, it's useful knowing that there are monies for capital improvements coming.
Absolutely.
And you can focus a little more in on services.
That's right.
For the new budget. Okay.
That's right.
Great. Yeah. Mr. Root, any questions or thoughts about this? All right. It looks like... Stop interrupting the meeting, Herman. Come on, your little antics are very obvious. Yeah, it was your second warning. Goodbye. Great. Thank you. We'll just wait. All right, so we have quite a few recommendations to make in relation to this Measure A. So what I'd recommend is approve the recommendations of the CIO's August 17th, 2018 report as amended to reflect the modified recommendations in the CIO's October 11th report of this year to read as follows. Designate the LA for Kids Steering Committee as the administering entity for the new Measure A grant program, with the Department of Recreation and Parks serving as the grant administrator pursuant to the recommendation made on August 8th. Council File 18-0611. To authorize the controller to establish new special funds within Department 88 to receive and disperse Measure A program funds as cash flow or for reimbursement of program expenses as follows. MAC 1, Community-Based Park Investment Program. MAC 2, Safe, Clean Neighborhood Parks, Healthy Communities, and Urban Greening Program. MAC 3, Natural Lands, Open Spaces, and Local Beaches, Water Conservation, and Watershed Protection Program. MAC 4, Regional Recreational Facilities, Multi-Use Trails, and Accessibility Program. MAC 5, Youth and Veteran Job Training and Placement Opportunities. And item 6, MA. What does MA stand for, out of curiosity?
Measure A.
Measure A.
Oh, it's Measure A. Thank you. We're in acronym hell sometimes here. Maintenance and servicing. 7, MA, program innovation. 8, bonds. 9, bond match. 10, miscellaneous. 3, request the city attorney with assistance from the Office of the City Administrative Officer, the Office of Legislative Analyst in Recreation and Parks, and the Controller as needed to finalize an ordinance to implement the adopted recommendations. 4, instruct the Department of Recreation and Parks to submit an annual expenditure plan and quarterly status updates for the Measure A grant program. Recreation and Parks will be responsible for processing all accounting transactions funded by the Measure A grant. 5, instruct Recreation and Parks with assistance from the CAO to report to the LA for Kids Steering Committee on the following issues. A, identify any proposed staffing needs to support program activities. B, analyze the cost effectiveness of utilizing joint use agreements between the city and the Los Angeles Unified School District to address, there are only 3 more pages of this, just kidding, to address recreational needs in underserved or highly dense areas and confirm whether Measure A program funds may be used to support the associated operational costs. And finally, 6, authorize the CAO and the city attorney to make technical changes, including adjustments to the names of the new special funds reflected in recommendation 2 above as needed to implement mayor and council intentions. Isn't that exciting? All right. So without objection, Mr. Rue, that will be the order.
Sure.
All right. All right. It was as exciting for you as it was for me, I can tell. Thank you so much.
Any new money is good money.
All right. So that brings us to item 5.
Item 5, Mr. Chair, is the continued hearing, the Chief Legislative Analyst and City Administrative Officer joint reports relative to the health and well-being of Billy the Elephant.
Thank you. We have some public comments before we assemble here. And everyone will have 1 minute for public comment. There are quite a few. But welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come here and give us your feelings on this very, very important matter. So we're going to start with Nancy Cam. Oh, okay. It left off the last of your name. My apologies. Oh, that's okay. So Nancy Campo, please have a seat.
Well, I'm actually a neophyte to this issue, although I'm not a neophyte to the fight of...
Okay, please have a seat and give testimony.
I'd sort of like to give my time to Kristen Cluster, if that's possible.
We don't do that, and she already is on here giving testimony, so please give us your thoughts. And then, is there I'm not sure about this one, Padder, P-A-D-D-E-R, Padder? Sometimes people have fun with these things. And actually, Ms. Cluster, you'll be next anyway, so please step forward. Kirsten Cluster. and then followed by Kat Kramer. So,
Well, I've had about 10 years of looking into animals in Africa, reading a lot about them. And, in the wild, elephants, they wander from 20 to 30 miles a day. And in Billy's situation, he's been years even though there's been a tremendous improvement in the zoo's habitat for elephants, first of all, not all that habitat is available to him at any given time, but it doesn't begin to approach the well-being that he would experience in one of the two wonderful elephant sanctuaries that are already, will take him. One of them will even pay all of the expenses involved. So that's. There we go.
we get your sentiment. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Kirsten Cluster, followed by Kat Kramer, followed by Mark Kleinman.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Kirsten, and I just want to thank you for your careful consideration of this motion and for Billy's welfare. This motion is not about politics or money or votes. This motion is an opportunity to help an individual who I believe is suffering and who we are all responsible for. And I want to urge you to please ensure that this independent panel that goes in to evaluate Billy looks at his physical health, his mental health, and his overall welfare. And I would just like to thank you for setting an example of kindness and compassion for this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I too want to thank you for your compassion and concern over Billy, because I've been concerned about Billy's health and well-being for many years. So I just briefly want to stress that it's important to look at the overall health and welfare of Billy and thorough examination of Billy's living conditions, not just, limited to what you think it would be, but the overall conditions of Billy, because there's so much concern for him, and just to really keep in mind about the overall living conditions, besides health and his stress level.
Thank you. Thank you. Mark Kleinman, followed by Pooja Rajaram. Sorry, I butchered your name. Followed by Melia Kaplan. Yes, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the council members for the attention and thought that they've given to this issue so far. And I know it's taken a lot of time and work, and we appreciate that. I want to speak focused on paragraph 3 of the CLA's recommendation regarding Billy's behavior in the environment. If I walk into a doctor's office and I've got elevated blood pressure, if that doctor isn't talking to me about my exercise, talking to me about my diet, talking to me about what sort of stress I'm under, she's not doing a good job for me and isn't really looking at everything that's going on. That's why it's important that a global view of what's going on with Billy be considered here. The American Veterinary Medical Association actually has a definition about welfare, and it defines it as the state of the animal and how it's coping with the conditions in which it lives. Thank you very much. I hope that'll be supported.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Pooja Rajaram, will, followed by Melia Kaplan, followed by Spirit Ritchie. Thank you.
To follow up with Mark said, since animal welfare is defined by the AVMA as how an animal copes with the conditions in which it lives, there are a number of items that are widely accepted that basically take into account the behavioral and environmental factors of Billy's environment and that should be included when conducting a welfare assessment. These include observing Billy and his interactions with his handlers or keepers during a routine keeper inspection, and that should include photographing the elephant's profiles, feet, including toes and foot soles. This gives you a general idea of what his foot condition is as pertains to his environmental conditions. Also, this should include discovering his daily routine, how much exercise he gets, how much he's able to wander, observing his normal exhibit activity throughout the day, and observing his gait and whether that's normal or abnormal. And this will all sort of help contribute to an overall assessment of his general welfare, including both behavioral and environmental aspects.
Thank you. Melia.
Good afternoon.
afternoon.
I'd like to follow up on what Mark and Pooja said. So what questions would show that a person has the kind of experience to conduct a welfare exam of Billy? Has the person demonstrated a history of experience in examining the standard of care and living conditions of captive elephants? Has the person demonstrated a history of experience in examining medical and husbandry keeper records of captive elephants and how these records reflect the standard of care and living conditions of captive elephants? Does the person have inspection experience and or observational experience with captive elephants that requires a written report of findings to determine if the animal inspected or observed reflects coping with an acceptable or unacceptable standard of care and living conditions? In closing, we are sure that the zoo will support this request for a comprehensive welfare exam for Billy, as they surely want to ensure Billy's health and well-being just as much as we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Melia. We have Spirit Ritchie and just two more speakers after that, Joanne Yavanek Garb and Stacy Brenner.
She wants me to talk first.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Joanne Yavanek Garb. I live in West Hills, and we are safari members of the zoo, and we love Billy. But I will tell you something. Billy was traumatized when he saw his mother being killed. And when an animal and a human suffer such trauma, they develop habits. I know that from the human standpoint because we adopted a family of 5 kids who were traumatized at very early ages. And to this day, 19 years after we adopted them, are still exhibiting some of those behaviors. And to take him from a place where he is loved and he is well cared for is going to be another trauma that this poor elephant is going to sit and could result in different behaviors. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Okay.
Tell us your thoughts.
I don't think that Billy should go because God.
It's okay.
I don't. Because it would be like, just because like I'm in a loving and caring place right now with my family, it wouldn't be good for him to leave, because then he would leave where he's being loved and cared right now.
Mm-hmm. You must love elephants. Do you love all animals? Yeah.
Even snakes.
There you go. Let's hear it for the snakes. Reptiles are animals too. Thank you. Thank you so much, Spirit. And then Stacy Brenner.
I guess I'm lucky to go after that. I'm Stacey Brenner. I support and am here representing social compassion and legislation. And I just have a few notes that we've written down to speak on behalf of Billy. And the first one is social compassion and legislation supports whatever is best for Billy. The second one is we support adopting recommendations that will ensure that all qualified and eligible veterinarians with experience with elephants and wildlife in general can be considered for inclusion in this process. That's really the most critical component that we're talking about here. Number 3, we understand that there are concerns about interest groups as well as the zoo and its supporters having undue influence on this process, and we encourage the committee to do what we can to minimize that. It's important that this assessment be independent as it is to be credible. On a related note, we've seen a letter from Voice for the Animal suggesting a set of professional veterinary protocols. We 100% agree with that. We also encourage the committee to consider making sure it is taken seriously by the city and all staff who's responsible for implementing your recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we hear from our colleague, Paul Koretz, I think he's still here, I believe? Yep, okay. Very good. Before we hear from him, I just want to say that, to a recap, is that during our last committee hearing on this matter, we discussed with the CLA-CAO report and with the supplemental report, I'd like to move forward with the CLA-CAO's recommendations from the June 13th we had the session then, and generate the joint report with some amendments, unless you have any questions. But before I make those recommendations, I'd like to recognize Mr. Koretz. And the beauty of what we're doing is we're working very hard to ensure a completely unbiased evaluation of Billy's health and psychological well-being. because the emotions are so powerful, understandably, on all sides of this issue. Everyone in this room loves animals. Everyone in this room loves Billy. And we have various opinions on his well-being where he currently is. So we want to get a real thorough, objective evaluation, and that's what we strive to do here. And with that, Mr. Kretz.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for having me address you today. Ever since the committee decided in January to go in the direction of a health and welfare assessment of Billy, my primary interest has been to encourage you to make sure it's done independently by fully qualified professionals, and I believe that's been the committee's goal as well. The amended recommendation, which I believe is being put forward, seems to me to set the stage for such an independent assessment, so I encourage you to adopt it as part of your action today. And on a related matter, I've seen the letter encouraging you to call on the CAO and CLA to frame the process as both a health and welfare assessment, employing a set of professional protocols that can provide answers to all the questions the committee posed back in January. My feeling is those protocols would be very helpful in accomplishing that, and I hope you'll consider somehow to include them either in your instructions or comments to the CAO and CLA. So today's an important opportunity for the committee to move this matter forward so that the full council can finally launch this assessment, and I urge you to take the appropriate action and approve the amended recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Koretz. And with that, I'd like to bring up the CAO and CLA. They're going to provide a brief overview of their supplemental report reviewing the alternative criteria proposed during the previous committee hearing. As I mentioned, that was on June 13th. And we have Terry Sauer, and please give us your report. Your
and me,
thoughts.
Councilman. How are you?
Oh, yeah, and you, sir. Thank you. I'm like, where is... There we go.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Councilman Rue. As you mentioned, Mr. Chair, on June 18th, this committee heard a previous joint report from the CLA and CAO regarding the convening of a panel of medical experts to study the health and well-being of Billy the elephant. At that meeting, alternative criteria was proposed. Actually, revisions to the criteria were proposed to the joint report, and this committee asked us to review those criteria to determine how that would affect the potential panel. We submitted a report on September 21st, 2018. It is on the council file, and our assessment is that if this committee and the council instruct us to do so, that alternative criteria would expand the potential pool of candidates for the panel. So we would be pleased to move forward with whatever criteria this committee or the council instruct us to do so.
Thank you.
We concur with the CLA's assessment of our follow-up report and as proposed.
Okay, you concur. And I think maybe that microphone isn't working. I'm sensing it's not working. But we heard you concur. Thank you. It's just very low. All right. Terrific. All right. Well, with that, Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very happy that this committee has been able to develop some agreed upon language and a framework for medical, behavioral, and environmental evaluation of Billy and his enclosure. It is absolutely necessary that we move forward in an impartial, apolitical, and unbiased way. It is my goal, and I think I could speak for the rest of the council and everybody who testified here today, that this process continue with Billy's best interest in mind and ensure that whatever recommendations come forward from this panel take first and foremost his health and well-being into account. I am also looking forward to the zoo finalizing its report back on the questions presented by this committee a few months ago, because we do need a full picture of implications associated with the panel's forthcoming recommendations. That would, of course, include any foreseeable impacts on the zoo's accreditation and educational programming, and any knock-on effects that Billy's departure would have on the well-being of other animals in the zoo. Now, Mr. Chair, with that being said, I am very happy to move forward on this item. And I know you have some amending language, but I do have one amending language as well, which I could introduce now or later.
Let's, see,
Okay.
because it might be something I have.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it is it might actually be the same thing, but I want to make sure that I move to amend instruction number 1 listed in the CLA's report to read as such. Authorize the city...
Exactly what I have.
Authorize the city administrative officer and the chief legislative analyst with the assistance of the zoo department to seek advice from licensed and certified veterinarians independently without providing additional weight to recommendations provided by entities external to the office of the chief legislative analyst who have at least 5 years of experience in exotic and/or wild animal medicine, specifically for the unique needs of male elephants, and advice from subject matter experts, and report with findings in response to the Arts, Entertainment, Parks, and River Committee questions in attachment number 1.
All right, so you stole my thunder because that's my recommendation.
I think we all thank you, Mr. Chair, because we actually worked all together.
Right, but that's
to
the
come to a
recommendation.
consensus on this.
Absolutely, that's the recommendation that I completely, wholeheartedly support, and I appreciate all the work of the CLA and the CAO's office on that. And I don't have any other additional recommendations. Mr. read it word for word. Yep. And so what we're going to do on top of that is, so we'll note and file the report from June 13th, and we'll move forward with the recent report with the recommendations just stated. And that'll be the order. Yeah?
So moved.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to item 4, zoo concessions. And we have Terry Sauer and Roy Morales again. And before we start this, I want to thank you, Terry, specifically for your work on this. This has been years in the making. We've worked on this for a number of years. So I just want to put that out there. And also with your, I know that GLAZA is here. Many GLAZA members are here as well. Mr. Lewis and the zoo. Everyone's been working collaboratively to sort out the issues for the RFP for concessions. So I just want to express my gratitude for that. And so with that.
Thank you, sir. I would like to say I appreciate your thanks. However, it really was a team effort. So just to sort of bring you up to speed on where we are, since our last meeting in August, we had asked for an additional 45 days to finalize the RFP document and bring that back to you. So we've been meeting with GLAZA, City Attorney, CLA, and the zoo to redraft the RFP document, and we have successfully completed that process, and that's what we've transmitted to you. We believe at this point that it's a document that can be moved forward and released and adopted by council. It addresses the concerns that both the CLA and the CAO's office had expressed. We've clarified the language concerning sponsorships, capital investment, and revenue sharing, and we've also incorporated the request, the city's good food purchasing policies, and ensured that all of the documents and the city's contracting requirements have been incorporated into the RFP. Additionally, we reached out to ITA, and we've been successful in obtaining access to the business assistance virtual network for GLAZA to permit them to manage the RFP, and we're also going to request that ConAd assist them on the sort of technical side of the city's contracting requirements. That's one of our recommendations. Additionally, the second instruction was for the city attorney and GLAZA to work to revise the concession services agreement within 30 days. That also has been completed, and that is also before you to allow us to use that as an attachment for the RFP. So at this point, we would request that you adopt the CAO and the CLA report, and I'm available if you have any specific questions.
Thank you, Terry. If I could have Connie up from GLAZA, just to kind of get since you're here, get your take on the process that I think has been very successful, and what your thoughts are in getting the selection process completed in a timely manner, et cetera. I think we're all on the same page on that, but take us through some of your thoughts. on
Certainly.
this.
I do believe we're all on the same page, and I'd like to thank both Terry Sauer and Roy Morales and my zoo colleagues and my Glaza colleagues for coming together to work together over a number of meetings to get this right, to go back and forth almost daily sometimes.
It seemed like it.
And I especially appreciate the effort put in by the city to help us bring it to the level that the city requires for a document such as this.
Fantastic, thank you. I mean, I sense that we have a greater collaboration, and I think that makes for a really strong sort of force moving forward on getting some of the best agreements that we possibly can with our future concessionaires. So, thank you, Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I just want to say I'm finally relieved to see this RFP that will be coming forward us that could be sent out. It's a long time coming. And this has been a very long and laborious project, and I really want to thank everybody involved, from the CAO, the CLA, the city attorney, the zoo, Glaza, for coming to the table and putting the zoo, for putting the zoos first with this version of the RFP. And I look forward to seeing both the results of the concession services RFP as well as the new concessions agreement between the city and Glaza early next year. It is also my understanding that the previous concession agreement between the city and Glaza was generated in 1981. So I would hope that the new agreement is reflective of the needs of the 21st century zoo. I would also expect that whatever revenue sharing terms city staff and Glaza arrive are prioritized with the interest with the sustainability of the zoo. And I do have one question, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Of course.
To the CAO, do we expect the results of this concessions RFP and the new agreement with Glaza and the city to come back at around the same time in February?
Yes, that would be our goal, sir, is to finish the selection, the RFP process. And while that process is going on, as soon as council has adopted this, we will start our discussions with Glaza to redraft the concessions agreement between the city and Glaza.
That's great.
Yeah, I think we're in business. So, thank you.
I forgot to thank Dev also from the city attorney's office.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you, Dev.
Yes, thank you, Dove. All right, so what we'll do is we'll approve the CAO and CLA's recommendations and take it to council and get moving.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Mr. Morales, I believe that completes our items for this agenda.
That is it.
Thank you so much. Our meeting is adjourned.